What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for January 6, 2025. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Victory Monday edition of the podcast, our last Victory Monday of the regular season. Eagles, Packers, next Sunday, 4:30. We will get more into that game as the week progresses. But more on this Eagles Giants game, 20-13. It was about what we expected it to be, the fact that it was a glorified preseason game. However, the Eagles did tie the franchise record for wins in a season with 14, tying the 2022 team. And every time the Eagles have won 13 or more games in their franchise history, they've gone to the Super Bowl. So make of that what you will. But as I mentioned, it is Packers-Falcons in the wild card round next Sunday. And if you did watch any, like as soon as the Eagles game was over, I flipped to the red zone. The ending of both the Washington Cowboys game and Packers-Bears game, they were just wild. It went from we were playing the Packers, and then for a brief moment, I typed out the text message that it looks like we're playing the Commanders, and literally 30 seconds later, the endings of both games happened, and here we are playing the Packers. But like I said, we'll get more into that as the week progresses. Jeff Lurie, 300th win, including postseason as owner of the Eagles. Pretty cool stat and story there. But let's take a look at the keys to the game. Again, it was a very boring game. However, we said, Tanner McKee, it's your time to shine. Are you the backup quarterback of the future? I think that debate has been settled. 269 yards, 2 touchdowns. And truthfully, depending on what Pickett's ribs do, he could be the playoff backup, at least for the time being. But I do think moving forward, he will be the backup quarterback behind Jalen Hurts. And I know the way the game started, we're waiting for quarterback controversies. Oh, Tanner McKee should be starting over. No, he shouldn't. Not yet, at least anyway. But I do think he made a strong enough statement to say, I'm the backup of this team. I would say moving forward. I know you want somebody with playoff experience, and Kenny Pickett does have that. And I guess depending on the situation and the scenario, but we'll see. But Tanner McKee did do enough yesterday to stake a claim to be the backup quarterback of the future. Key number 2, stay healthy. Didn't really see any major injuries. Dallas Goedert shook off some of the rust from being out. Looked pretty decent early as the go-to target for Tanner McKee. I wouldn't be surprised if that was part of the game plan that Kellen Moore had. And look, I think what the game plan was yesterday was to set Tanner McKee up to be successful early. And that's what I've been saying all year, and I feel as though those scripted plays have not really, at least until Pittsburgh, really hadn't worked out. So I think it's even more imperative that the game plan for Sunday is to set, especially coming back from a long layoff, is to set Jalen up to be successful. And then obviously the last one was just watch the scoreboard. And like I said, it was fun going back and forth watching both of those games. I'm not necessarily afraid of either team. Obviously, it's the Packers now. I'm not necessarily afraid. I think either way, it was going to be a tough game. I just would have loved to see Washington with the revenge factor. But it's Green Bay. Let's go. Jalen is in concussion protocol still. And I heard something interesting on the pregame show. I had to run the Lowe's for something. And Elliott Shores Park said that to his knowledge, there's like a 5-tiered or 5-step program for concussion protocol, and that the last one is that the quarterback has to go through practice. So it is, in theory, possible that Jalen already met the other 4, and because they were going to rest him anyway, Saquon did practice, but AJ didn't practice. Devontae didn't practice last week. It's conceivable that Jalen would not have practiced. So therefore, because he didn't practice, he can't pass that 5th part of the concussion protocol. Again, I don't know it. I'm just going by what I heard on the radio from Elliott Shores Park. But if that's the case, that makes me feel a lot better than where we were without knowing what the concussion protocol is. We did lose our bet. I did say, or no, we didn't lose our bet. I said take the Eagles minus 2.5. So we did win that bet, and I think that puts us at 7-8 on the season. So not great, not bad, but I mean the good thing is we lost those bets because a couple times I took the Eagles to win and the visitors the underdog to cover. So we'll take that, but we did win the bet. Lost the parlay because I said I liked the under or the over, as well as the Eagles. And had it not been for Jake Elliott missing a field goal, that parlay would have come in. But I think, and I'll get more into the history of the Eagles Packers in the playoffs later this week. But I'm a little concerned with Jake Elliott. Yes, it was windy yesterday at the stadium, but man, this guy is missing. Like I'm concerned about it because I vividly remember being at an Eagles-Packers playoff game where David Akers struggled down the stretch, missed 2 field goals, which was the difference in the game. That's my one concern, that and Jalen's rust, or if he has any rust going into that game. But it's something that later this week I'll talk about. But let's celebrate the win. 14-3 regular season. Second time in franchise history they've gotten to 14 wins. Nick Sirianni, love him or hate him, he's done it both times they've gotten to 14 wins. And every time they've gotten 13 or more, they've made it to the Super Bowl. So that hopefully that trend continues. But it is the day after a game. That leads us into today's question of the game. Who was the GOAT of the game? Is it Tanner McKee? Is it Jahan Dotson, who had himself a day? Or Sidney Brown, who came up with the big interception? Let me know on the Back to the Future voice and text line 267-495-8531. That'll get you in. Get that. Anything else, Philly sports, Eagles related, off your chest. Want to start looking ahead to the Packers? That's fine. My vote would go to Tanner McKee for the way he played, and I feel solidifying himself as the backup quarterback. But what are your thoughts? Who's the GOAT of the game? Tanner McKee, Jahan Dotson, or Sidney Brown? 267-495-8531. That'll get you in. So we'll take it on to the playoffs, and let's go Birds. Let's do some housekeeping. Be sure to follow me on social media, Jimbo_Mott on Twitter and TikTok, at Philly Jimbo on Instagram. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mott. Let's continue to spread the word. Still working on some behind-the-scenes things for the display and the presentation, but that is all coming. But looking forward to continuing to grow this thing. I mentioned yesterday, I will give you the details. We'll be featured on KYW News Radio as the Fan of the Week, which was pretty cool. I did an interview with them a couple weeks ago. So looking forward to that, but I will keep you posted on the details of that. And then we're featured in the On Pattison newsletter, emailed to your inbox every day. So go check them out as well. And while you're at it, check out my boys at the Clashing Conferences podcast. They are doing a lot of great things with their Sports Fan Network. Hopefully I have a meeting with Steven today or this week. Hopefully I'll have some more updates on them. But that's available wherever you get your podcasts as well as on YouTube. And then celebrate the Eagles win. Celebrate the playoffs, the 2 seed, a 14-3 regular season, and go to Philly GOAT. Get your Eagles gear, get the bird wing shoes, and use that promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off your order. PhillyGoat.com, promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. Flyers lost yesterday up in Toronto 3-2 in overtime, ending their road trip with a 2-2-1 record. Not great, not horrible. West Coast, like I said, I hate West Coast games. I really, really do. I hate West Coast trips. I hate everything about them. Ivan Fedotov started in goal. He was a little rusty early, but settled down and then played pretty well. They have a return date against the Maple Leafs tomorrow at the Wells Fargo Center, finally returning home after the Christmas break and Disney on Ice. Sixers are back home tonight. First home game they've had in a while, too, against the Suns. Joe's listed as questionable, but I feel like the entire season he always has been, probably always will be. I'm thinking he's likely to play, though. The Sixers lost to the Suns by 2. Excuse me. In a close game earlier this season out in Phoenix. So hopefully with Joe, they'll perform better today. All right, today we're going to go back to 2019. And on this day in 2019, the Eagles beat the Bears 16-15 in the NFC wildcard game out in Soldier Field. You might know this game better by its nickname, and that is the Double Doink. Nick Foles hit Golden Tate on a 2-yard touchdown on 4th down with 56 seconds left to give the Eagles the lead. The 2-point conversion failed, basically setting it up perfectly for the Bears to drive down the field, kick the game-winning field goal. Mitchell Trubisky did just that, got them into makeable field goal range when former Eagle kicker Cody Parkey, who happens still, which blows my mind, he is the all-time single-season leading scorer for the Eagles. But Cody Parkey double doinked the attempt. It was tipped by Trayvon Hester of the Eagles. It hit the upright, hit the crossbar, and bounced out, giving the Eagles the win and leading us all to believe that Nick Foles had some magic left in him for that season. Unfortunately, they went out to New Orleans the following week. Had a chance in that game. The Saints blew them out earlier in the season, but the Eagles hung tough, had a chance. They were driving late, and the ball just went right through Alshon Jeffrey's hands. Lots of people think that had Alshon caught that, the Eagles win the game. They go out to LA the next week and then go back to the Super Bowl. But on this day in 2019, it was the double doink. Eagles beating the Bears 16-15 at Soldier Field in the wild card game, keeping that Foles magic alive and giving us the title of defending champions for one more week. All right, for New Year's, I've been telling you this since January 1st. We've not been doing New Year's resolutions. That's played out. It's cliche. We've been forgiving people who have wronged us in Philadelphia sports history in an effort to bring good karma and good vibes to our Philly sports teams here in 2025. This one's a tough one, and nobody said that forgiveness is easy, but this is a very, very tough one. But it's the first week of the playoffs, and this is an important game, and this is a very important person that truthfully we need to forgive and move on from. And that is one, Chip Kelly. And I know it's going to be a controversial one, and I'm not going to lie. I think he's a scumbag as a human being, but that's not what we're going to forgive him for. We need to be the bigger persons or the bigger people here. I'm going to be the bigger person because we need to just release that negativity from our aura, from our ethos, whatever you want to say. We got to let it go, and we'll be the bigger people here, and we're going to forgive Chip Kelly. Not so much of what he did as a coach, because as a coach, his first 2 years, he went 10-6, won a division title, made the playoffs, happened to have a shot in that game against the Saints. We're not going to forgive him for what he did as a coach because, truthfully, when he was not in charge of picking the players, he wasn't a horrible coach at all. We're forgiving him for his moves as a general manager. As soon as he got control of the team, that's when shit hit the fan. Obviously, the big notable names were cutting Deshaun Jackson because of alleged gang ties, trading away LaShawn McCoy for Kiko Alonso, not to mention the whole DeMarco Murray fiasco, bringing in running backs. Well, we got 3 running backs that we're paying the same as 1. That's what we're forgiving him for today. But, however, I do have to say, and this is where we need to be the bigger people about this and kind of look at it from a 30,000 foot view. His bonehead moves and ridiculous signings, whether it was Kiko Alonso, Byron Maxwell, DeMarco Murray, any of them, they allowed Howie Roseman, when he got out of that janitor's closet and really took control back of making the personnel decision, allowed him to work his magic. Obviously, Howie learned a lot by being shoved in that janitor's closet, and it's been Howie Roseman magic ever since. all of those crazy moves that Chip did allowed him to go up, trade, get the number 2 pick, select Carson Wentz, and it's a whole different ball game. We'll get to Carson Wentz later this month, but Carson Wentz, we don't get to the Super Bowl in 2017 without him. So that's part of why we're forgiving Chip, because as bad as his moves were, it allowed Howie to work his magic. And also, Chip did re-sign Brandon Graham, who almost signed with the Giants. And a most iconic play in Eagles history was the strip sack of Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. If it wasn't for Chip Kelly, Brandon Graham would not have been here. And also, some of the drafts with Chip Kelly's input and people that he did, drafted Lane Johnson, Zach Ertz, Bo Allen, Nelson Aguilar, and Jordan Hicks, all who contributed to that Super Bowl team. So, Chip, I'm going to be the bigger person today. I forgive you for being an absolutely horrible general manager and not really knowing how to assess talent, and the fact that you had 2 of the most explosive players in the NFL at the time and you let them go for Kiko Alonso. I'm going to forgive you for that. You're still a scumbag. I'm not forgiving you for that. And that we're not talking personal here. This is Philly sports related. I forgive you for your tenure here in Philadelphia and all of the bonehead, ridiculous, and stupid moves that you've made. And we need all the karma we can get heading into this week against the Packers. That's why Chip Kelly, we are forgiving him for his tenure here in Philadelphia. The personal stuff, whatever. He's a scumbag, borderline, possibly racist. I don't know. We're not forgiving him for that. We're forgiving him strictly for the football moves, I guess you could call them, even though they were just boneheaded and dumb. So, Chip, we forgive you. I feel much better getting that negativity out of my life. I know you might disagree. However, we need to be the bigger people here. And this is for the betterment of all of Philadelphia sports. So, Chip Kelly, today, we forgive you for your tenure here in Philadelphia. Be sure to let me know what your thoughts are on that. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be up in arms about that. But like I said, forgiveness isn't easy. And this is for the greater good. We're forgiving Chip Kelly for that. I know Deshaun and Shady probably never will forgive him for that. This was a tough one. I almost didn't want to put him on the list, but we need that good karma. So, Chip, we forgive you today. We'll have more on the Sixers and Suns game tomorrow. We'll start gearing up our playoff coverage, getting ready for the Eagles-Packers. Lots of big, close games between the Eagles and Packers throughout history. We'll get into those 3 games. I think it was 3, possibly 4. Either way, we'll get into the playoff history between the Eagles and Packers this week. Send prayers, whatever you do, positive vibes, whatever, that Jalen really only does have to get out on the practice field, make it through a practice to clear concussion protocol. If you're keeping score at home, the line opened up at 4.5 for the Eagles as a favorite at home. I think it actually opened up at 3.5, and it's already at 4.5 this morning. If you are going to bet the Eagles, I'm not ready to make my prediction yet. I would get that line before it balloons up. There's some questions about Jordan Love's health, so that might get up to 5.5, maybe even 6. So if you're going to bet the Eagles to win, get that bet in early now. Also, let me know who your go-to-the-game is. Tanner McKee, Jahan Dotson, or Sidney Brown. 267-495-8531. That'll get you in. But yes, the big story today. We are forgiving Chip Kelly. It's tough, but it's especially on a snowy Monday, but we have to be the bigger people here. Chip, we forgive you. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for January 6, 2025. My name is Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Monday. Be safe out there if you have to travel. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.